What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Other Side of the Firewall podcast, where we talk about the latest and greatest of cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shan Tynes
What's up?
and Chris Abercon.
What's going on, everybody?
What's going on? So, welcome to Wednesday's episode. So, Monday and Tuesday are topics. Wednesday is a discussion. Thursday's Ask a CISSP. And then Friday's everything else, movies, books, games, all that cool stuff. But without further ado, I give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. So this article comes from thehackernews.com, and we got Ravi Lakshmanan back again, right, with this one. So the title of this one is Google pays $1.375 billion to Texas over unauthorized tracking and biometric data collection, right? So we were having a little discussion offline just right before this, where Chris was putting us on game about, different privacy laws and how it discombobulated, I'll say it is, in the United States, right, amongst the different states, which is why you have things like this that can happen, right? So like I had to look at this, right? So Google agreed to pay the 1.4 billion, and I was like, well, Google's $1 trillion company, right? So let's see what it really does for them. And when I looked at it, as of May, Alphabet, their parent company, is worth 1.98 trillion, right? So like this was one of the things where they probably walked to an office and was like, hey, where do I drop this briefcase off, right? Like I got your money, right? Like that's probably.
I wonder if they have an insurance policy for this. I don't know.
Yeah, like it's yeah. It's they got to have something easy to be able to do this, because the fact that they did it, it's like they talk about it in the article here, and they said in November 2022 they paid $391 million to a group of 40 states, right? So in January 2023, $29.5 million to Indiana and Washington. Later that September, they forked over $93 million to California. So they're like, look, whatever you say we did, we'll pay it. It's whatever, right? So like it's not like this is really hurting them, right? Like even with the 1.375 billion, right? But this is a case that was originally filed in 2022. So these things take so long to go through the courts. It's crazy. By the time like a judgment comes out, or they agree, right, to pay, and maybe they agreed to pay the 1.375 because it would have been more, right? But we had Meta, what was that, a month or two ago, that had to pay the 1.4 billion or something like that from Meta. We talked about it. Like these companies, they're $1 trillion companies, right? Like how do you make it hurt? How do you make it hurt for some of these companies to pay some of these fines? But when it comes to privacy laws and everything for Texas, like this is a win for them, right? This is one of those things.
Texas is getting paid. They're getting paid. I hope they can fix the roads and stuff and all that with all this Google money. They should just name the roads after Google. Hey, this was provided by Google's lack of privacy.
I mean, they gotta get it somewhere, right? They're not charging any state income tax, right? So this is
exactly
how they get it, right?
Property tax relief. Come on, Texas.
Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna do it. That's where they're making a lot of their money, man. Like
they got wild property taxes in Texas.
Because here's the thing, like they're not charging that. This is one of the incentives, right? Sorry to get offline here, Ryan, but
yeah.
They bring you in by having these big mansions that they're not charging mansion money for. But like when it comes every year for that property tax, boy, oh my gosh, that's where they get you.
Man, listen, I've seen so I've watched so many on my social media that it pops up now. I get like little reels from Texas of just these gorgeous houses with acres of land.
Oh yeah,
I was like,
dang.
That would be nice.
But yeah, I mean, the point of this, Google, they were doing unlawful tracking and collection of the user data, right? So it was the geolocation, the incognito searches. That was another thing that came out of this, right? Because people were like, oh, the incognito, like I can do whatever I need to do and nobody's tracking it or whatever. Wrong. Like Charlie Murphy, right? Wrong.
You're wrong.
You know what I mean? Biometric data, things of that nature, right? So like, it just goes to show that despite what these companies are telling you, don't automatically assume that, oh, they say they're not tracking me if I'm using this browser or this whatever. It's not always true, but 1.375 billion, that's what it costs them. Chris, man, give us some more consultants. Send Ryan another bill. What we got here?
Yeah. But like, really, my first thoughts were like, these tech companies continue to do this. They continue to just, they just do it and ask for permission later, right? So it's just kind of like to me, they have they've done a cost benefit analysis internally, and they're like, yeah, like let's just do what we want with this stuff and get paid or have to pay the fine on the back end. So part of me is just like, maybe they just have these fines already built into their revenue stream. That's kind of what I'm thinking, right? Like they're probably just accounting for the fact that it's more worth to get the data from these individuals, and we'll definitely take the risk on because clearly they said, I accept the risk of paying these fines. So this is probably priced into their R&D, right? So it's like, hey, get all the biometric data that you can. I'm speculating, right? I'm completely speculating. Don't sue me. Don't cancel us, right?
Allegedly. Gotta
Allegedly,
say allegedly.
allegedly, right? Allegedly, everything is allegedly, but I'm thinking in hypotheticals here. But it's like, hey, let's get all the data that we can, create our new fancy products and algorithms, and then just get find in the back end, right? But putting back my consulting hat on, but looking at the privacy laws in the United States, we've got a lot of states that have some of them passed, a lot of them aren't the same. Some things like portability and the right to consent, things like that, they are they are, or the right to correct and all that stuff. It's all dependent on what state you're in. But what happens is this creates a lot of confusion for businesses, because they're like, hey, if I'm expanding my, even if you're a medium-sized business, right, and you're expanding across state lines, or even if you work remote or you have customers all over state, it creates a lot of confusion. One thing Europe does have over the US is the comprehensive privacy laws, right? US is all over the place. Some states don't even have their states and some bills aren't even active. Some bills are just like sitting on the wayside. Like there states like there's Georgia and Mississippi, right, inactive bill. So what's going on there? So if you're business working out of that, it's confusing if you're working with a business that's out of, like, let's say, California or Colorado, right? But I think consulting at privacy impact assessments, yay, that's another thing. Private DPIAs are a thing, right? So contact your local privacy professional and see where that person and that group can help you assist and identify those areas where a client might have identify those areas where they can, you can create those transparency requirements, or even like a privacy notice, right? I think notices are huge, right? It's for all that, maybe some of the military guys listening in, like, privacy from the military perspective, not really a thing. Like, we watch, like, the military watched everything you did, and everything you did on government property was their property, But in the commercial sector, it's like, you have the right to opt out of stuff, right? And you have to be notified, like, hey, we're collecting your data. But last thing I'll say is, all that fine print, all those agreements that you're clicking yes to, sometimes it might be worth reading, at least skimming over those, right? Because you never know if they'll add some line in where they're like, hey, by agreeing to downloading this software, you're going to forever, your data is ours. Like, Adobe was trying to do this crazy thing where they have a popular program called Lightroom. I'm sure everybody's heard of Lightroom, where all the professional photographer, they take photos and upload it into the Lightroom cloud to edit their photos prior to posting on Instagram or something like that, right? But they snuck in during an update where it's like, hey, you update into anything you put into Lightroom, the cloud, gets fed into our AI without even, like, giving the artists or photographers an opportunity to opt out of it, right? So they quickly backtracked and gave that option. But for a time being, if you had logged into Lightroom, that stuff that you uploaded for that specific period of time with all Adobes, and that's BS, right? So just consider
Here's
that.
my question to you though, Chris. How many people do you think actually read it?
None.
When they
No.
when they sent that to them in email, or next time they logged into Lightroom and it popped up and it said, "Hey, you have to agree to this." How many of them just clicked the checkbox and then went about their day so they could upload their photos?
Oh, that's probably more than 99% clearly. But all it takes is that 1% to blast it out on the internet and be like, hey, look, Adobe's doing some evil stuff. That's kind of my thoughts. Don't sue me, Adobe. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, passing off to Ryan.
As long as you say allegedly, you're
Allegedly.
okay. We're not lawyers here, right? So to a certain extent, I think that I can take the mental exercise to say, like, maybe it is kind of baked in, because if you're not taking risks, you're not making money. That's just the way a lot of these companies work.
Mhm.
There has to be a certain amount of risk, even in the financial sector. Like, if you're not taking risks, you're not going to make profits. Shareholders will not be happy, and you will go out of business pretty fast. So there has to be a certain amount of risk baked in. But when it comes to their privacy handling, I guess you would say, I can't see it not being a lack of oversight. Because like, so let's look at a bank, right? Like, so a financial institution usually has three lines of defense, right? So you have the first line of defense is going to be your operational management. So this is the people looking at the business units to make sure that they're doing their due diligence, doing their due care, things of that nature. What risk are they taking? How can we mitigate those risks? How is this baked into the risk appetite of the company, so on and so forth? Then you have your second line of defense, right? Your risk management and compliance. So that's me. I'm your second line defense type guy, right? So I'm in the oversight of resiliency is kind of like my specialty in here, like business continuity, disaster preparedness, so on and so forth. But then you have your third line. Your third line is audit. So like it keeps rolling up to someone else to make sure that, hey, are we doing our due diligence before it gets to a third party regulator? And then within within these verticals, you also have like third party risk management, technology risk management. Like there's so many risk managements. It's pretty robust. For it to get to a regulator means that there systemically something that just didn't happen properly. There's no way that a tech company like Meta doesn't have this to a certain extent. Like it might not be as robust because there's no NYDFS, there's no
SEC.
OCC. They're like, so to a certain extent you have like FCC, SEC, like certain, because their companies are so big, they're going to have those big regulators as well, but they don't have regulator on top of regulator on top of regulator, so you don't turn to like a Bear Stearns or Lehman Brothers, right? Like that's going to be different until a Meta like company does go bust and disrupts the economy. But we know banks do this, or have done this, I should say, in the past. So that's why they have so many regulations on top of regulations on top of regulations. But a lot of these people cycle through finance sector, cycle through tech, cycle through so on and so forth, and they have to be bringing these ideas with them to a $1 trillion company like Meta, right? So you got to think that these people exist within this corporation. Like these frameworks have, to a certain extent, they have to have some kind of lines of defense to protect Meta from these fines, but they're not. So I don't understand like what is happening. So I don't want to say that it's all like evil corporation taking risks to make money, but maybe because they don't have regulations on top of regulations, they don't have all these verticals like a bank would have, maybe to stop this from happening. Because that's a lot of money. Like even for a $1 trillion company, you're giving away billions every quarter. Like you're making billions, but you're giving away billions on top of it. Like that just doesn't make sense to me.
I don't think the amount that they got fined, because it was 1.4, so it was a little bit below 1.4, I think was the initial ask. How much did they make from this information though? Like that, I don't see that listed to where they probably made, 3 billion or something like that when they've done their costs, when they have that room of people, the bean counters that say
Right.
this is what it made us. They're like, yeah, we can give up half of that, or we can give up,
But you would think you would want to stop the hemorrhage regardless, though. Like, because what if you have a bad year? What if a market disruptor enters the arena? Someone bigger than Meta is spawned. Like you have to think like there has to be something to protect Meta from itself internally before a third party regulator gets to them. So what is going on there? Or
but they're not doing it.
are they evil corp and they're doing much worse
They're
than
not
we
doing it themselves.
thinking?
Yeah, they're not doing it themselves. Their their founder is not as rich as he is, taking a $1 salary for the last 15 years and taking stock. You know what I mean? For them not knowing what they're doing. I don't know. I don't. Nobody thinks they can get beat until they are, right. Like
Yeah,
Mike
maybe.
Tyson.
Yeah.
Like Mike
So
Tyson said,
maybe.
everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right?
Right.
Yes, sir.
So maybe that is it. I just would think that you would want to regulate yourself before you get regulated out of existence. It's usually what industries do to themselves, right? Like you even had the video game industry do it to itself. Like it made the ESRB because it didn't want Congress to be breathing out his neck all the time, right? So they made their own regulatory body to keep it from to give it a buffer basically from the not judicial branch. What am I thinking of? What is Congress?
Legislative.
Branch.
Yeah, there you go. Legislative branch. I should watch I'm Just a Bill on Capitol Hill, like to refresh my memory. So I don't know. Like it kind of baffles me but again, they haven't been regulated as hard as other entities like banks and things of that nature. Because banks, there's so many lines of defense and there's so many other verticals within those across the enterprise.
Yeah, I
to
think
attack.
the financial industry definitely after like GLBA and SOX was passed, all or not, GLBA and SOX. Really, they've done I think it was necessary because of how important it is for people handling people's money and livelihoods, right? So there's clear impact on that. So
So will it take a Bear Stearns Lehman type situation in the privacy of the social media aspect to
I mean,
make them
it would have to be a breach of just like colossal, um, you know, effect that would happen. But the difference between like a privacy breach versus like a financial breach, right? It's at least with the finance, like you can see like your bank account could go right to zero versus privacy. I think people still have this aspect of oh, it's not that's one, they don't understand it maybe, or just don't realize how important protecting privacy is. I think it's lower on the like hierarchy of needs or whatever it might be on it
right? But
for the general populace,
right.
perhaps,
But that's
right?
what blows my mind because data is the new gold. Like it's worth a lot of money, right?
But it doesn't as directly affect you as if you can't get a hold of your money though, right? Like yes, it is the new
Yeah,
gold with those
exactly.
companies, but like if I can't, use
You
my
can still feed yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
You might not be able to go to family events anymore because the group chat got leaked, but
yeah,
you can still feed yourself.
yeah.
Like, I get you.
If every guy group chat out there was leaked, I think the economy would collapse.
It'd be a done deal.
Why is everybody moving to like uh, moving out of the country? Why are all these
Right,
guys
right.
leaving?
Just mass migration. All right, we got to get out of here, so we got some time for Friday's episode. So definitely continue to tune in. Monday, Tuesday, our topics. Wednesday, discussion. Thursdays, Ask a CISSP. Fridays, everything else, movies, books, games, and all that cool stuff. Hit up all the websites to go by our name. The other side of the firewall.com. ramcyber.io. Hit me up personally. I'm at RyRy Security Guy. That's RYRY Security Guy. You can find me pretty much everywhere, but LinkedIn is where I'm the most responsive. And you, Chris?
You can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Chris Abacon, last name spelled A Bacon.
There it is. Stay safe. Stay secure.